Hey, I'm Michael, and this is Michael in the Middle. It's an intergenerational relational podcast for people who are interested in better human interaction. I'm glad you're here. Hello again. We are so thrilled today here on Michael in the Middle to have as our special guest Dr. Brodrick Thomas, a friend of mine now for many years, actually. And we're going to have fun with a conversation here in a minute. I'll let Brodrick tell you a little bit about his story, but I wanted to just say at the outset here that I remember Brodrick coming to Trevecca and being involved in a lot of things here before he was ever an employee. Mm-hmm. And I always remembered that, man. It was so cool to see you around here. And I think I remember that Mark Elliott kind of had a little bit of a role to play in that. He had met you somehow. We'll get to that in a minute. But episode 27 here, Michael in the Middle, is going to be a great conversation with a man that I highly respect, but I also consider him to be a very good friend. So welcome here to Michael in the Middle, Brodrick. I'm glad you're here today.
We're double-digit years friends now.
We are.
I mean, because I think I got here around 2011 or 12, and we're rolling into 2023, so that's awesome. We're privileged.
So, as I often do, I like to get a little bit of the story of, where you came from, your growing up years, and how you overcame being an Auburn fan and things like that. What's your story, Brodrick?
So I'm from a small town in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. Usually the way we name it, we say that we're from Clay County, Alabama. So we named the entire county because it's hard to find.
All right, yeah.
Clay County. But I'm actually from a small community named Millerville, Alabama, an even smaller community outside of that called Tri-Community, where it's literally my family, the Thomas family, and the Nelson family. Clay County, Alabama is about 45 minutes south of the Talladega racetrack. So that'll give you a geographical idea of where it's at. And
is that anywhere near Rock Mills and Roanoke?
Yes, actually. Roanoke was rivals of ours. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, our middle son married a girl from Roanoke.
Oh, man.
The Foster family there in that county were quite prominent. And so I kind of know that general area that you're talking about. That's great.
That's where I'm from, man. It's a beautiful area. Roanoke has a lot of nice lakes in it and stuff like that. But I'm from the dirt end of it, so I'm from the worst end where it's not many beautiful lakes. But grew up there, graduated school from Clay County High School, made my way down to Auburn University, the place I've loved since I was 2 or 3 years old, Dr. Johnson. I was in the backyard throwing a football at pine trees,
that's awesome.
Dreaming of beating Alabama.
Yeah.
And so went to Auburn. And I loved it. Had an opportunity to play for Auburn, but I lost my way in a lot of ways in high school. And when I did that threw me off track academically. And one thing that any athlete who may be watching this know is that in order to play in any NCAA division or level, you have to have a qualifying score between your GPA and your ACT. And mine was terrible because I just turned it off in my junior year because it just wasn't cool to be a smart black kid at that time. Wow. You still got picked on about that. And so I was like, well, I'm a football player, I'm an athlete, I don't need that. And that's one of the biggest frustrations I have in my life. And there's a direct link from that time into how I got to Trevecca, because I was a really good kid as long as I had my best friend with me, Jacob Morris, who is Nazarene to his bones. And so he recognized me when I was a younger kid, and he saw that I had so much promise and that God had something written on me. He would speak to me like that, like God had something better for you. And I was like, who is this elementary level kid who can talk this way about, Jesus and God? And come to find out that all came from this place in Nashville called Trevecca. And he kept telling me when we were in high school, he said, you need to go to Trevecca. You need to go to Trevecca. But I was too fixated on Auburn. And so our smaller school, Bibb Graves, was closed down. And I went to the county school and Jacob went to an independent or a private school. And when I got separated from him, I noticed that I was connected to him, but not yet invested in Jesus. And so whenever I became a senior in high school, as I graduated, I rededicated my life.
Wow.
And so I went to Auburn. Everything fell through there. Somehow I got it back on track after not being able to fulfill a long loved dream, and was able to still work with the team, helped out the coaching staff a ton.
Great.
And then I graduated and was looking for what to do next. And Trevecca, and Jacob pulled me up here. Him and Jeff Swink and Esther Swink. And I came and I just fell in love. I fell in love with Nashville and was willing to, like you said earlier, work for Trevecca for free, like do whatever I possibly could, because I cared about the community and felt like I knew it all my life because of how it poured into Jacob and Jacob poured into me.
Oh, man.
So that's the coolest thing. And it's also pretty awesome when you come here and you meet Michael Johnston, right? Like,
yeah.
You get to hang out with this cool guy who knows everybody. And then Mark Elliott, and then you have the president. I'm not used to the president of the university being so available, but Dr. Boone, I don't even work for him and he knows who I am, And so that's kind of how I matriculated to where I am currently. Well, not currently, but how I made it to Nashville.
That's amazing.
It's a long story. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's great. It's great. So, do you have any siblings growing up?
I do. I have they're amazing too. It's so hard to compete with them. So they're all much older than me.
Okay.
My sister, I'm not going to say her age. She'd kill me. They're like 10 to 16 years older than me.
Okay.
My brother and my sister. And my brother served in the military, got out, and he went to become a nurse, changed his mind, and then became an engineer. Then my sister, the smartest of us all, went to Alabama twice, got her master's from there, and she's like the director of tax and like consulting and acquisitions within Ernst & Young. So she's doing pretty well for herself. It's hard to compete, but they don't have a doctorate yet, though.
That's great.
That's what I tell them.
That's great. Yeah. When you were growing up, who were your role models? I mean, your parents, or you got aunts or uncles or grandparents or people outside your family that really helped shape you?
Yeah, my mom was. She's instrumental. That woman did so much.
Man, I get it. Loving your mama.
Love my mama.
I lost mine a year and a half ago, and I still think about moments where she was such an encourager. My mom just was always saying she thought I was just the best, Well, my brother too,
Yeah. But
yeah,
really, it was you, and
great-
it wasn't Dr. Johnson. It
yeah,
was you.
great memories of my mom, and I'm so glad you had that relationship with yours. So you kind of come up through Clay County, Alabama, and you go to Auburn, and things are kind of coming together a little bit, and your buddy Jacob Morris keeps talking about Trevecca. Now, when did you actually land here at Trevecca? Because I feel like that you're coming to Trevecca actually kind of set the table for a lot of the things that you're doing now.
It really did. That's great insight by you. July 2011, I'll never forget it. And one of the big things that attracted me to Trevecca was the fact that First Church of the Nazarene. I know you're a TCC guy, but the Nazarene Church, drew me in, number one.
Wow.
And the number one thing is hearing about J.O. McClurkin's story and how this school got started.
Yeah.
Was foundationally what just like, this is for me. I mean, he was down in downtown Nashville after the Civil War. And of course, war tears communities apart. So you have veterans there who are missing limbs and everything else. And he's down there witnessing to them. Women of the night, as you could say, who, were there when soldiers were in town and had nothing after soldiers left. He was witnessing to them, just kind of like Jesus was to the woman at the well.
Yeah.
Like there's living water here. And then he starts a school from that. Like that is what university was built for. That's what school was built for. That's what that's directly in line with my faith. I don't just believe what I believe; I live what I believe,
Yeah.
and I respect that. And plus, Gerald McClurkin, many people don't know this. He's one of the people who said early in his time when everything wasn't okay with race relations, everybody wants to go on mission trips, but what are you doing for your neighbors of color? That's a brave thing to say.
It is, yeah.
I got drew into the Church of the Nazarene there because of Brent Lawrence was amazing. And I was like, this is a community and where I want to be. And then Trevecca's also in that picture. And I'm doing my MBA at Trevecca as well while being here. And I just wanted to be involved. I just want to be around it. I just wanted to live it and feel it. And so I've fully bought into the Nazarene doctrine because I love it. Whether it's women being able to be in ministry, that's meaningful to me.
Yeah.
Or whether that tradition that I just told you about, like I love it in that missional aspect that, we don't live just for ourselves and to get another jewel in our crown, but we are like looking outward towards others.
Where did Lauren Thomas come into that equation?
Oh, my lovely, beautiful wife. Sports Center Spears. She's gonna kill me for this one, but I have to. She got in trouble one time. I call her SoPro Spears, social probation. Lauren Thomas came about through TNT actually.
Okay.
So the way I kind of got myself involved at Trevecca was that I started working at plant operations. Started at the very bottom. I wouldn't say the bottom of the organization, but like
entry level.
Yeah, entry level. Like literally seasonal temp. Didn't know if I would have a job. And so I did well enough, impressed Glenn Lithicum and Tyler Hill and Jason Bradley and all that crew.
Wow.
Enough to where I was able to get full-time status. And I was working at TNT and she was in admissions. TNT is a huge admissions piece because, Nazarene teens from all over the Southeast descend on Trevecca, and it's just such a fun thing. And we just got to know each other, and I was like, I really like this girl. I really like this girl. And she wasn't interested at first, but thanks to Greg Stewart and me being a gentleman, I was able to woo her enough to where she was willing to go out on a date with me, and then a year later we got married.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
so cool. And you have 2 children now.
2, Ren and Bo.
Ren and Bo.
Yes.
I love it. You did the MBA.
Yes, sir.
You meet Lauren,
and
you get married, and start having kids. Didn't you do a second master's degree as well?
I did. I really wanted to jump to doctorate because we still do have a phenomenal EDD program here. And we weren't ready for tuition remission yet at that time as a university. So I jumped into the MOL program because I'm a learner. I just want to learn, Mike. I just want to keep learning. So I did do MOL and then eventually EDD.
Yeah. We both got our pictures taken in those purple robes.
Yes,
man.
sir. Dr. Johnson. I try to call you that every chance I get because I know how hard it is.
Oh,
it's so hard.
How many times do you think about quitting?
So many. Because that's when Ren came along. So like that, I was doing this whole new father thing, and like it was a lot of early mornings before she woke up, and so it was many times. I was like, can I just put this on hold?
It's not just enough to want to be a lifelong learner. I think one of the things that I got out of that program as much as anything, and I've heard this from others as well, it was to prove a point even to myself that I could stay with it and get something done, I mean, I'm really proud of the finished product, but I'm also proud that I didn't quit, when it felt like quitting would have been even the safest thing to do to a certain extent, So Dr. Brodrick Thomas ends up working with us in student development at Trevecca. By the way, I don't mean for this to necessarily be just all about what happens at Trevecca, but I think it's a clear indication our relationship and even this conversation is reflective of choices that we make and decisions that we make about what we're going to give ourselves to and what we're going to invest ourselves in. And so, I mean, our lives are inextricably tied to this place where we're filming today, Trevecca Nazarene University. It's not a place without its flaws or challenges. But man, it seems to have been a perfect fit for people like us, huh?
Right, it does. And that's the thing that's so beautiful about Trevecca, and that I don't think a lot of people realize. It's an assumption that because it is a predominantly white institution, that these stories don't exist. But these stories, are the foundation of this place, where you have people who come from missionary backgrounds across the world to people who just come from the Southeast who would have never met each other in any other context, come here under the same tent as you would to be educated and taught how to love one another, so that we can turn around and teach others how to love one another.
Many years did you work with us in student development?
I started in 2016. So Tom Middendorf, I'm gonna be honest with you, I never wanted to jump into diversity. Still struggle with it. But Tom Middendorf convinced me. He's like, your story is unusual,
Yeah.
and it's unlikely, and I think your story can really help us as a community open up to other students that are starting to find who we are at Trevecca, students of color, because Nashville was growing so diverse. And Trevecca is such an institution that becomes a magnet that people from the undocumented community, the African American community in Nashville, our older students in our graduate programs, a lot of diverse people were coming into FRA. So he was like, you understand how it is to come into our community and find belonging. Can we start a process of developing that for others? And the only thing he had to say for others, and I was done, man. As the kids say less, So yeah, and so I transitioned into student development and founded the first diversity position at Trevecca and worked within it for 5 years.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You were part of the initial process of recognition. I think I'm right about this, along with Dr. Steve Hoskins, and were there a couple of other professors with the recognition of Walden College's
Yeah,
connection
Dr.
to
Iris Gordon as
Iris
well.
Gordon? Yes.
Jamie Castler was in there.
Okay.
Janice Lovell was a huge piece in that. Jacoby Campbell was a big part of that as well.
Talk a little bit about the significance of that, because this university, the college at the time, came to this plot of ground in 1935 without a lot of awareness of what all had happened here before. And I'm a big believer that the place we're in matters, and the way that we interact with the place that we find ourselves. I mean, like the physical place. So we get out here in 1935 not really knowing a lot about it, but come to find out, Trevecca had some roots in the African American community long before we really understood it. Tell a little bit about the significance of that.
So it's so many different significant things here. Just a couple miles from here, the U.S. Colored Troop Division 13, which was all black, raced up a hill and were literally slaughtered, but they took the hill at Peach Orchard in order to win the battle in the Civil War. And just a few miles from here, where all that blood was shed, those who were freed after the Civil War came here after being enslaved for so long and created the first black school within the Southeast, and I'm pretty sure the United States, right here on this hill, and it was called Walden College.
Got a beautiful historical marker here now up here by the library, and if you're watching, you can see the picture of that marker. We don't have time to get into it. I know there's even a limit to time that we have today, but I'm white, you're black. I mean, I guess if you're watching, you can tell that too. But I told a little bit of my story about growing through my high school years in Jackson, Mississippi in episode 26. And I still don't understand how people today could struggle with, the idea that, or maybe they don't even struggle. They just think there are certain inequities that are just endemic in the human race. And how in the world do we combat that? How do we help people understand that we're all one human race?
Yes.
We're all made in the image of God. What are some things that you have personally tried to do to help people understand how we ought to be able to get along a little better? What are some things that you're thinking and working on these days?
Man, so it's biblical for me, from the standpoint of that. The thing I hang my head on is that Jesus was questioned about what was the greatest command, and he responded that it's to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself. If you click on that direct link, that hyperlink, it goes back into Deuteronomy, where God has given out all these laws, and basically he's saying, the reason I'm giving you these laws is because I want you to be wise and I want you to practice justice. And I wish Dr. Boone was here. He could probably he could tear this apart, man. But whenever he says wise, what he's saying is hokmah. And hokmah is this deep term that it's not just wisdom as we know it in our own mind, but it's also like your spirit. It's like who you are. It's what God has created you into as you've lived through it. I love to hear you talk about growing up in Jackson and then my story as well. That is a part of our hokmah, our spirit, our experience, what we do. And then we are to take that and practice justice with it. And that's tzedek, I think is the term for that. And what that means is just righteousness or right relatedness to one another.
Oh man, that's awesome.
So all God is calling on us to do is to make the most of what he's given us and to dedicate it to others. And what we see right now, Mike, is that we've been sold a lie, I think, by the society in large. And I think the root of all evil is, when you hear the love of money, is basically fear, our security. We're terrified of losing what's ours. And so that's what I see people fighting over, is that, no, this is what I believe the world to be, and you're encroaching on that. No, I believe the world to be this, and people are fighting over that. When at the end of the day, it's not about being afraid about each other. It's about finding a way to love and be right and be in right relationship with one another.
Yeah.
And I hope I can give something practical to bring into that. What I would say is just be willing to be vulnerable with other people. That's where I've learned the most. I've had misconceptions about people, and whenever I'm vulnerable, they always surprise me. Every single time.
Oh, I love that.
No matter what you believe and however you go into that conversation believing, just being willing to listen to someone and let them get inside and mess with you a little bit. Because I think that's what faith is. Faith is believing that no matter what comes my way, my foundation in God is so secure that it can't be shaken. So if someone comes in with some information that's really difficult for me, my foundation should be strong enough in the Lord that where I don't lose sight of where he has me going. It may be that I interact with that person and we disagree and we go separate ways, or it may be that something is sparked and we do something powerful together. You know?
I love it.
So that is what I suggest. Just on top.
You were at Trevecca in that diversity and inclusion role, helping to establish that and bring people together from diverse people groups and all of that, and get the doctorate finished. And I guess, what's it been, a year or two ago, you made the
hardest
I know it's a difficult decision for you.
Hardest decision I've ever made in my life.
But it's been a great decision for you, hasn't it? You're now at Franklin Road Academy, and your role is similar. What's the title?
So it's the Director of Community and Inclusion, and it was three reasons why I left in particular. One was that this is home. You know, you got to go to college at some time. You have to leave the house.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I won't ever be back here, but but I had to leave home. I had to learn something else. The second one is that just, the leadership over there at FRA is just extraordinary. And that's not to say anything about our leadership here, because some of my favorite people in the world is Daniel Lee Boone and I can't remember Tom's middle name, but Tom Middendorf, Thomas Middendorf. They're some of my favorite people in the world. But just going into the unknown and having to understand how to work with different people, who has a strong culture, I think that's gonna help me help this place one
Yeah.
day. And then finally, it's definitely about you know my kids and impact as well. Like FRA has a great community where kids go all over the world, some of the biggest universities. And the same thing that drew me to Trevecca is that looking outward and witnessing to others and impacting others. I get to do that for kids over there who may not have a big level of faith, who's going to be on some of the biggest stages in the world. I get to pour into them.
Yeah.
And I also get a chance to get my kids into a really good school at tuition. So, and it was a really hard decision, but I think I've been made better for it. I have to go out into the wilderness like Jesus did, to really strengthen my faith for whatever's
That's
next.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I loved how you touched on allowing yourself to become vulnerable in the context of a relationship with someone else. And I assume that's the part of the way you do your job there at FRA. You're helping
Absolutely.
students who normally are
Mhm.
given to peer pressure and groupthink, and everybody kind of go the same direction or whatever. You're helping students during a very formative time of their life
Mhm.
to realize that it's okay to open up,
Yes, to
maybe
one
to
another.
somebody else,
Yeah.
to one another.
The way I say it is, I'm trying to develop within students this idea of the ability to to handle the difficulty of different. Like it's hard. It's hard to interact with something different than you've ever known in your life. And we have really conservative students at FRA. We have really liberal students at FRA.
And there you are, right in the middle.
Yeah, I am trying to tie the two together. It's so hard. It's so hard, Mike. I'm telling you. And so that has been my number one lesson that I've given them, is that you're going to go out into the world and they're going to cultivate this great academic sense as they enter the world that FRA's poured into them, and they're going to go shine like a light on a hill. What I want them to be able to do is shine from anywhere in the world, for anyone in the world. It doesn't matter who the person is. They can see the humanity in them, and love them no matter how much they disagree, no matter how much they're alike. So that's why I believe in what I do, and why I work so hard at it, especially when it's difficult, because it's just I don't control my narrative in my job as most diversity practitioners do, because everything, no matter how much you set up this context and this beautiful community, the external leaks into the internal every time. Everything that's going on in society ends up right in front of us. And so it's impossible, but that's the thing that I look forward to, is that what I see out there, I can change by what I do every day in the future. Our future, which is our kids.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Larkin, your future, kid.
We've had a great friendship along the journey here over these last 11 or 12 years, and I got a feeling the story's not over yet about how things might transpire that allow us to work together on some things in the future.
Absolutely.
I know our hearts are in sync with one another.
Yes.
We want to make sure that we find a way to help people understand that we really are all just people.
Mm-hmm.
We all bleed the same color.
Yes.
As cliche as that sounds, and I just got to tell you, I have so much respect for the way you came to us, in terms of the way I got to know you and your journey to Nashville and to Trevecca here, and there's a lesson to be learned about starting where you are and working to get to a place where you can be someday. And I think you typify that, and I give honor to that, Dr. Thomas. I really do. I think it's amazing, and I have a feeling that the students that you're impacting at Franklin Road Academy have appreciation for you in this moment. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that could end up writing stories about their encounters with you the way I did about Mary Meredith when I was in high school in Jackson, Mississippi. The people that our young people can, the folks that our young people can encounter in their younger years can be marked for life in a really good way, even when they don't know what's happening. Yeah. They'll look back on it and they'll see. I'm a big believer in, markers in our lives where we can look back and say, that person at that moment in my life changed it all for me, changed it for the better. And that's what you're doing. That's what you're giving your life to. I know you got to run, I totally understand that. I could probably talk to you for hours. Maybe we need to schedule another one of these.
Let's do it. Part 2.
Michael in the Middle is all about finding ways to get out there in the middle of life and do something good for somebody else like this man has done. That's episode 27, and we'll see you down the road.